Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. My name is Olesa Chromachuk, and I'm the director of the Ukrainian Institute, London. The Institute is a center for Ukraine-related educational and cultural activities in the UK, and we do our best to explore challenging issues that affect Ukraine, but not only Ukraine, also societies all around the world. We are a registered charity, and we are entirely funded through our events like this one and your donations. So we are extremely grateful to all of you who purchased your tickets for tonight's event, because this kind of support allows us to hold at least some of our events for free. So let me now introduce today's webinar. Today is the second event in our Donbas series of events. And in this series, we discuss the culture, the history, and the identity of the Donbas region. And of course, we also talk about the effects of the ongoing war on the region. And as I'm sure many of you are aware, worrying news continue to come from the Donbas. Only this morning, the reports that were received informed that 2 people were killed at the front line. So this war continues to claim lives. And even when it's over, it is likely that the trauma that Ukrainian society is experiencing now will continue to last for some time. So the questions that we'll be discussing today will be about the role that art has in helping us come to terms with this trauma of war, in helping us understand it, make sense of it. And we have an absolutely excellent panel of speakers today to discuss these issues. They'll be introduced in a little while. They are at the moment in different parts of the world, covering quite a few time zones, from Mexico to Canada to Kharkiv to Mariupol and London, of course. And I am extremely grateful to one of the speakers, Svitlana Biedarieva, who helped the Ukrainian Institute London put this excellent panel of speakers together. I'm also absolutely thrilled that we got the permission of the film director Maria Stoyanova to show her excellent short film Ma. It's an exclusive screening that you will have today during our webinar. I've seen this film several times already, and each time I watch it, I am profoundly moved. So I hope you enjoy the screening later on during the webinar as well. So let me now introduce our moderator, who will then introduce the speakers. Myroslav Shkandrij is Professor Emeritus of Slavic Studies at the University of Manitoba. He has published works on cultural and political history of Ukraine, on the avant-garde, on nationalism, on Ukrainian Jewish relations, on Russian-Ukrainian relations, and on post-colonial theory. And he has curated several art exhibitions as well. And by the way, Myroslav was actually lucky to have visited the exhibition that we'll be discussing today in person, not so long ago. So hopefully he'll be able to share some of his first-hand impressions of the exhibition. Myroslava, proszę.
Thanks. It's a pleasure to be here. And as Olesa said, I actually met our friends, the curators, Svitlana, Biedarieva, and Anna Deikun, when they were here in Winnipeg, and I saw the exhibition. It's a very impressive, sometimes disturbing, and sometimes challenging exhibition. So it's in many ways conceptual, but also it's I felt that it was an attempt to keep the war in the public view, and also to show people what personal experiences individuals who have experienced the war have gone through. It's a 6-year conflict that for many people is practically unknown, and for others is forgotten. So it raises many questions: the tiredness of a long war, the individual lives people live through, how they deal with it, and also how these things should be portrayed, how a war of this nature should be portrayed, and what the role of art is. So I would like to introduce, first of all, Svitlana Biedarieva, who is an artist in her own right and who has a work in this exhibition. She's also a curator, a researcher of art, who now lives in Mexico City. She completed a PhD in the history of art from the Cultural Institute of Art at the University of London, and has done her own exhibitions and is now working on a publication on contemporary art in Ukraine and the Baltic countries. So I would like to ask, to kick things off, I would like to ask her to explain something about how the project was conceptualized. It's much broader than just one exhibition, and what the purpose was behind this, and how successful she feels this has been. I know, for example, that in Mexico, 1,500 people a day came to visit this project, and there were many other aspects to it. Besides the exhibition, there were films produced, there were film nights, there was conferences and so on. So Svitlana, could you introduce the project to us?
Thank you, Myroslav. It's a really big pleasure for me to present today about this project. And well, it all started with the idea of the exhibition, which was called At the Frontline, Ukrainian Art 2013-2019, which with my co-curator, Hanya Deikun, we decided to present it in Mexico City. It was one of the first projects about Ukraine in Latin America, and it revealed to be the first project about Ukraine that worked at that large scale, both in Mexico and in Latin America. We've invited 13 Ukrainian and international artists who reflected on the political situation, the turbulences of the last 6 years, including the protests of Maidan, including the war with Russia, annexation of Crimea, and all the ongoing political challenges. So the idea was to present this project to the Mexican public and to establish some kind of dialogue with the audience that was not acquainted with the events that were going on in Ukraine, and to establish some kind of dialogue between this Eastern European and Latin American context. And I will put now the slideshow. So the exhibition at the Frontline took place at the National Museum of Cultures in Mexico City. It lasted from September 2019 till February 2020. And it was kind of an event that gathered really a lot of attention, because it revealed that Mexican public more about Ukraine and to overcome this kind of international channels of communication, like that were kind of filled with Russian propaganda and Russian interpretation of what's going on in Ukraine, and to see the reflections of Ukrainian artists. Those artists who took part in the exhibition were kind of presenting different perspectives and were choosing different languages to talk about the turbulences and the conflict situation. Such artists as Mykola Ridny, as Piotr Arminovsky, Evgenia Belarusets, they presented the documentary approach, and they presented the intersection between registering, recording, or the events that were ongoing in the east of Ukraine, and interpreting it via the lens of art. And they represented the whole big movement of contemporary Ukrainian art that is dedicated to this conceptualization of the events via a documentary. We can say that now the documentary films in Ukraine, they have some kind of new wave of success. And contemporary art also follows this trend. So we see this kind of movement towards what I would call a documentary turn. Also, we can speak about art that we presented in the exhibition as art as a presented particular political gesture. Art that aimed only to reflect on what was going on during the annexation of Crimea, during the war, during the conflict events in the East, but also to bring some kind of new perspective to modify what was going on in cultural situation around it. Many of the artists who took part in the exhibition are from the east of the country. Piotr Armenovsky needed to flee Donetsk because of the war. Roman Minin worked on the topics of the Donetsk region before all this conflict started. And in fact, the work of Roman is the only work in the exhibition that was created before the events of 2013 started. The work was created in 2018, and it gives some kind of very interesting general context of what was going on in the east of Ukraine before this war with Russia. So, and I think Roman will speak about it in detail. So the topics that we touched upon were kind of universal topics of violence, of resistance, of preservation of cultural memory that helped us to establish the dialogue with Mexican public. Because, for example, in Mexico, in 1968, there was this event of Tlatelolco massacre, when 300 students were killed in the square of Tlatelolco. So there are still some survivors, of course, from those events and those people who lived at that moment in 68. So they found this point of connection in the works that we showed in the exhibition that related to Maidan. Such works, for example, as the work of Christina Norman, precisely this one, is the work which featured Ukrainian artist Alevtina Kahidze as a performer. And Alevtina Kahidze brought the events of Maidan to St. Petersburg, presenting a story about Maidan events in the Palace Square in St. Petersburg. And Christina Norman, the Estonian artist, was interpreting this in her video. So such kind of collaborative projects also bring us to the discussion about the belonging of Ukrainian art. Like, does Ukrainian contemporary art belong to post-socialist space? Does Ukrainian contemporary art belong to Eastern European art scene? How we can make this connection? How we can make these connotations? So this was one of the another purpose of this exhibition was to actually find the place, to find the paradigm to describe the Ukrainian art of the latest years. We are making it global. The second part of our project was to bring the second part of our project was to bring the exhibition to Canada. While in Mexico, we had the exhibition that was accompanied with 8 documentary screenings at the National Cineteca and 4 conferences dedicated to the interpretation of events in Ukraine that Hanya will talk about in detail. In Canada, we brought the exhibition without changing the kind of curatorial perspective. We just kind of placed it on another ground. And we tried to see how Canadian audience, who has much more knowledge about Ukraine, of course, interprets and reacts to this change in to these works, and how is the perceptions of Mexican audience. And of course, it was very interesting dialogue also to see kind of different perspective. And maybe some of the works also, they presented themselves as kind of very politically charged and touching kind of problematic topics that are difficult to discuss with Ukrainians abroad at a certain moment. So I think this exhibition in Canada also fulfilled another aim, kind of to make this kind of multifaceted perspective on Ukrainian art as global art. And for this perspective of globalization, also we used the technical means that helped us actually to make this exhibition mobile, because the works on the exhibit, they were all ephemeral in terms of that they were able to be digitally reproduced without changes. It was video, it was photography, and it was a digital art. The only work was the installation of Ladana, with the stones, the stones that were stamped with labels that Ukrainian media opposed to each other were throwing at the political opponents in the times of annexation of Crimea and the beginnings of war. So these papers were brought from Ukraine because she needed to stamp them by hand. Everything else was able to be reproduced locally. So answering the question of Myroslav, I think that the exhibition performed and fulfilled not only one aim, but kind of a whole set of aims, because we were able to see Ukrainian art placed in different contexts, establishing different dialogues, and finding connections that would be not only some kind of conceptual connections, they would be also temporal connections in terms of linking different historical periods, and spatial connections that would be linking different and very discrepant spaces. And I think that was kind of an interesting perspective, and I'm very happy that I managed to realize this project.
Great, thank you very much. Our time is limited, so I want to let the speakers get going, and then afterwards we will probably have enough time not only to see the short film, but also to continue a discussion with people who are tuning in. The next person is Roman Minin, who is a graphic artist, photographer. He has done installations and monuments, and he has focused on miners' lives. He himself is from the Donetsk region, was born there, graduated then from Kharkiv Art College and Kharkiv State Academy of Design and Arts. And he was a director of the now famous urban art program of the Izolyatsiya platform in Donetsk. I'm sure he will be able to tell us a little about that interesting Izolyatsiya phenomenon, because it is part of the exhibition, and also about one of his works that it features very prominently in that particular exhibition. So, Roman.
I'm start? Okay. Hi, everyone. I am glad to be with you, of course, and with that discussion that's very important questions, maybe that questions without answers, maybe that answers like existential, it's correct to, it's
existential.
Yes, existential answers. And my art and the art of other artists who take part of that exhibition, it's existential answers of very popular questions from this mental sphere. So yes, I have interesting experience, of course, because I was born in Donetsk region in a family of coal miners, and once upon a time I understand what I really know which tema in my life where I really clever made to work with it, with that tema. And only one tema in my life, which I really understand and knows everything. It's tema, it's how to be a coal miner. What does it mean, destiny to be a coal miner and live there? And mentality of Donetsk region. It's my favorite tema. I love it very much. And I hope I understood something. So, and I am trying to discuss it in and use a graphic style, monumental style, because I have a study in Kharkiv, monumental art. It's art about the huge scale pictures on the wall, which communistic, it was communistic propaganda style, long time, of course, but not now, because now maybe that genre is died, because people don't need this tool of popularization some of ideas, because it's a tool, it's very old tool, because now we have internet and other tools of relationships, so everything, and for reclam of propaganda of ideas, some ideas. So it's I love this genre very much, monumental genre of monumental art. One aspect, a little aspect in west part on world, monumental is translate like it means like stuff on a cemetery. It's monument. But other, for example, just a sculpture, it's sculpture. Muralism, it's muralism, street art. But monumental, it's not for, in my school, in my part, in my homeland, it's monumental, it's mean not like stuff on the cemetery, not, it's just about huge scale, something, or sculpture or drawing on the wall. So, okay, and that is why I use this genre, the rules of the genre, this style. I love this style. And I think it's very harmony style for this understandable language, for mental understandable what's going on in my pictures. It's a good style. It's style which I may make very huge and very small, and it will be the same impression. So the plan of escape from the Donetsk region. When I work with Izolyatsiya Foundation, now we have a long pause, and I don't I'm not the director now at that moment we long time don't work together, but once upon a time I really work with Izolyatsiya and with children. I like work with children because I just like be a teacher for children and teach them paint on the walls. It's very interesting for me, for children too. So, and this was the same practice. We drawing on the walls, and I just asked the children, which top of your dreams, of your wishes in your life, in the future? And 90% of children's, most part answer, they just want to leave homeland and live somewhere. Poland, Europe, of course, somebody answered America, and that's top of dream, most part of children it was. So, and I was very impression, it was very impressed me, and I think, wow, which kind of future we have now if most part of people from 10 years old just dream, just run away for abroad, for another planet, for just they don't want to be in Donetsk region. Of course, it's translation of dreams from father, from mother. it's long story. It's not a story about one generation. Of course, it was like story last 20 years. And that's mental problem. And in my graphic, in my picture, I try to discuss that mental problem and introduce every pieces, every stuff which connect in mental portrait. It's like it's like a quest of Minion and K to understandable everything. So it's like a poem about it, and I need to make a special cipher, which I write in my poems on my pictures, and this cipher, it's like that secret code. It's like just symbol, but nobody who don't was there in Donetsk region, they don't understand correctly what happens and mentality of the people.
Roman, can you show us that work? Is it possible to see? Because I think viewers would be interested in some of your graphics.
Yes, it's you if you see well.
Yes.
So, for example, this right part, it's talk about man, it's person with a lot of symbols. For example, this diet is like a die. It's like one of plan of escape from the Donetsk region. One way, it's just a die. For example, of course, man has self on love, and man. I have a lot of symbol from from Orthodox church, because Orthodox church have powerful system, and a lot of people think about himself then they are Christians, but I'm not sure in it, but no, of course it's like a part of mentality of that region. Of course, it's important to understandable.
It reminded me of a board game or a video game in which one has to escape by following certain routes. Was that something that you were thinking about?
It's a good idea. Why not? Maybe later I'll do something like a game. It will be maybe a clever meditative game about it. And of course, I try make mentality of my homeland more beautiful, understandable for everybody. Maybe it looks like a beautiful fairy tale, I think so, but why not? I just want to create fairy tale about my homeland, because I'm tired from reality, really. And that is why a lot of part of my art is just like poems, like fairy tales. For example,
in this case, you mean your homeland, the Don Basin?
yes,
the Donbas
yes,
area.
exactly. Donbas,
Right.
I mean.
Yeah.
But now I live and work in Kharkiv, and Kharkiv is east part of Ukraine too. It's not far from my homeland, and maybe 3 or 4 hours on road by car. It's not far from.
Can you very briefly say something about the Izolyatsiya project, because we're running out of time, and it would be interesting to hear something about that.
Izolyatsiya, it was very powerful and very clever project in capital of Donetsk region, with very good specialists there. It was very great team. I liked that time, and Izolyatsiya, it was like a gate for another world for many people who live in Donetsk region. Of course, it's like wow, it's like really it was something new for everybody. So that is why, of course, I'm one of first who go to the Izolyatsiya and try to work with it very interesting team. And if Izolyatsiya, if there has enough time to change outlook of life of one generation, maybe another generation, for a lot of young people, it must be a great job for change of mentality. And the Izolyatsiya, it was a cool instrument of that, of change mentality there.
So some of the photographs in the exhibition are of installations and monuments created by Izolyatsiya, which was then, this entire project was then destroyed, right? These things were taken down and the Izolyatsiya project was ended.
Yes, you're right. I don't know what's now there, I think. But I'm sure Izolyatsiya has a great team, and if we have another chance, and of course we maybe I think so. I hope so. We will have a chance to come back and just try again, change something.
Continue your work.
I'm ready,
yes.
for example. I'm ready, and I do it by myself when I have a time. I went to my homeland and drawing on the walls. I make it 2 times, 2 big walls with my pictures, and I like that experience. I do it by myself, my money. It not. I just spend my money for paint, for everything, for my time, and make like a present for my city when I was born.
Roman, can we move on? Perhaps there'll be some questions for you later.
Okay.
All right, so the third speaker is Anna or Hanya Deikun. She is a co-curator of this exhibition. Currently, she works in Mexico, where she is a researcher and a teacher of political and intellectual history. She graduated from the Free University of Berlin, and also she has been a prize winner in Mexico for some of her works. She now teaches at the Institute of Higher Fashion Studies in Mexico. One interesting thing about Anna is that she is from Mariupol, and that is where she is joining us from now. So she literally is on the front line. And she's going to tell us a little more about this, this exhibition and project, but also the films, the screenings that came out of it, and will introduce us to the film. So, Anna.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. Yes, I'm in Mariupol at Frontline, as actually Roman is in Kharkiv. It's like 2 front lines, 2 cities. So yes, I'm now in Mariupol, and Mariupol is actually presented broadly in the project through movies, which are made there. And also one short movie is in the exhibition. And it's not because I'm from Mariupol and there are a lot of movies in the project, but because the city became kind of very interesting for the artists from Ukraine and also so international. So it's a place with like I remember the director Yvette Locker. We showed her movie Hanya in Serozha, which was made in Mariupol. It is about 2 teenagers and their dreams and desires, and they live in this city in Frontline, and they have their own problems, and like 30 minutes insight in their lives. So she said that she was so impressed when she came here to see this very heavy industrial city. And I always comparing it with the like Manchester of the 19th century. It's like huge, and it's this production of metal. From the one side, we have a sea, Azov Sea, it's on the beach. and it is like 20 now kilometers from the front line. And at the same time, during this hard time and this kind of conservative society, work class, we have these very drastic changes. Because also now Donetsk, it's in Donetsk region, Donetsk, the city, the main city is now gone. And a lot of stuff and cultural stuff are appearing here. For example, also we invited to one of our discussions, Diana Berg from Platforma 2. It's a new cultural project. They are introducing new kind of contemporary art to the locals, which is new. And also it became a place for the artists, like Ukrainian artists and international artists, to come to Mariupol and to do actually something and to have this kind of partnership in this place. And it was like when I was during this time, I was living outside Ukraine, but I was always looking what was going on. And this Platforma 2 was really exciting for me to have it, because when I lived in Mariupol, there was nothing there. So this place, to this place came a lot of people to do something, and we in our documentary program, we have like 3 movies made in Mariupol. And actually our program of documentary was shown in Mexico, in one of the biggest center of art cinema in Latin America. It's called Cineteca Nacional. It is a center of independent movies, which was made in 1974. And when we said that we wanted to show this, our program, actually in Cineteca, they also they knew about Ukrainian movies, and the main name they knew was Sergei Loznitsa. Actually, in Mexico, it is pretty known, and in 2015 they made an international film festival, Ficunam, a retrospective of all movies of Sergei Loznitsa. And we opened actually our documentary program with his movie Maidan. So we had this luck to present our films in this very important cultural institution of Mexico. It started 8th of November 2019. We had a week, and each day at 7 p.m. at Cinema Hall with almost 200 places. We showed 1 or 2 movies each day, and we presented for the first time such a diverse and extensive films from Ukrainian. Often it was young Ukrainian film directors or international. And the production of filmmaking and documentary making in Ukraine since Maidan grew a lot. And we are seeing, like Svitlana said about the exhibition, this necessity to fix the reality, the reality that is more interesting and dramatic than any artistic construction, and also because it is in kind of in constant and very powerful change. And I like this phrase of Evgeny Belorusets, which says we are pulled from the area of analysis to the event itself. So we feel that we lack of the language to speak about what is going on. This documentary approach from the filmmakers and from the artists give this kind of very necessary insight to the reality. And this is not just fast click of the media, it's not just this cold representation, but it's has this artistic perspective. And it is very powerful to present kind of this intimate and personal approach to the protagonist, to the movies, this critical and without censorship perspectives. When we started this project, for me it was like a personal question. How can we speak about this complex situation? How can we even explain, and can we explain what is Ukraine? It has very complex history, and I think with this kind of works in exhibition and documentaries, the public which have no idea actually about Ukraine could have this personal connection, and through this personal connection they could understand a little bit about the context. So yes, so the movies that we showed, they were about Maidan, they were about the war. It was not directly about the war. Normally is what we saw protagonist as Anya, Serezha in Mariupol, and we were following their stories, and we understood the context that something is going on near to them. And also we showed an experimental movies, experimental documentaries, and we today we are going to present one of the movies which was part of our project. It is from Maria Stoyanova, her film Ma. I like also this movie a lot. As Olesa said, I saw it a lot of times also, and each time it is very, I think, powerful because it gives this personal insight in the context of the city, in the position of the individual on the front line, and it's the same time it question about what is a documentary, what is real and fictional, what is protagonist and operator, what is the form and language of the documentary movie.
I'd just like to pick up on a couple of things. One of them is the issue of Izolyatsiya, this art project. In fact, the art center, Izolyatsiya, after the evacuation of people from Donetsk, became a prison camp, and a very notorious one, in which many people were tortured. It has now sort of become a symbol of what transpired in the Donetsk area, where one of the most creative groups, creative centers, was suddenly became a terrifying camp. Also, I just wondered if Anna wanted to add anything to the film, or any of you people wanted to add anything to the film by way of comment or description. No? Okay. Well,
I would like to speak a bit more about. I would like to speak a bit more about Izolyatsiya, that this work that we presented in the exhibition. They were actually projects and installations by international artists. They invited in 2012 Daniel Buren, Pascal Martin Taillou, Leandro Ehrlich, kind of prominent international artists, and some prominent local artists, like Rana Kadyrov. And all of these installations, when the territory was seized, were cut for scrap metal and sold, actually, for scrap metal. And the tower that I was showing in the slideshow with the lipstick by Skandrij interior, it was exploded. It's unclear why they needed to explode it. It was like this is what happened actually to the site-specific installation in the labs. And the labs are now moved to Kiev. But, they managed to find few space in Kiev. Yeah, but also this particular project represents what was how art is not just reflected, but art is kind of created in the place by certain political actions, or kind of very negative action. But we also can consider it as a type of this kind of artistic interpretation of the ongoing turbulent reality.
Yeah, I was also struck when I saw the exhibition by the way people had transformed monuments. Some of the monuments from the Soviet period had been completely recreated, remodeled, sometimes by slogans that had been placed on them, sometimes because they had been painted in a different way. And it was almost like popular creativity working to change the art of the Soviet period, the monumental art of the Soviet period. So I thought that was quite intriguing, and I thought it worked really well in the exhibition. The other thing that struck me when I was at the exhibition was the power of some of the very simple installations, like those rocks with the slogans on them, with the insults on them, you know, junta, fascist, separatist, patriot. All these things are now part of the language of abuse. Like the rocks, they're hurled at people without any context. Often people don't know the stories behind the lives of these people. They don't know, you know, what the rocks are supposed to hit and why. It was actually a very simple but a very powerful thing. And the other thing I noticed about the exhibition was the focus on women. I had never actually thought of miners as women, but it was very, very strong. It was a very interesting insight into the lives of ordinary people to show women miners. Are there any comments from other people there? Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to say about the monuments. It was really interesting because this Lenin statue in the eastern part, mostly of Ukraine, they had after the fall of the Soviet Union, it has had no meaning at all have no symbolic meaning for the people during from the fall until 2014. And suddenly in 2014, it became a lot of symbolic meaning as a pro-Russian direction, as a Soviet Union dark and necessary past, which people wanted to destroy. So suddenly in 2014, these monuments, which were destroyed or reconceptualized as Ukrainian by painting like flag, etc., gained this meaning, negative meaning, and became to be destroyed. And yes, and for one part, for the other part, the government implied a very problematic law about Soviet past and Soviet symbolic, and a lot of artworks became to be destroyed. So Nikiphora, what he's doing, and we presented his works, he go through all of Ukraine, and also he goes to Crimea, and he tried to depict these destroyed monuments, criticizing one more time this the perspective which we wanted to show also, it is critique perspective of the artists. And it is critique, of course, of what is going on right now because of this law. And I wanted, sorry, yeah, I wanted to say, yeah, I wanted to say about minors, because it's really interesting, because we had this conversation with Evgenia Belarusets, and I asked her, how could you make these very intimate photos? Because these photos which are depicted and presented in the exhibition, we see naked minors there, and they allowing her to show their bodies. And I was really impressed. I asked why they give you permission, and she told us a very interesting story, and very kind of dark story, because she said that she was traveling through this area, making photos, and she was near Lysychansk, and it was this minor, and it was occupied at this time. And the only thing that these miners had, having their routine every day to go to their work and work, actually, even without paying. But to having this routine, for them, it was like having making a protest against violence which was going on outside. And actually the who took the city, DNR, they wanted to close the miner, that these men could join their armies. You know? So, and at this time when she was there in Kiev, Kiev took the decision to close this miner. And these people were like, they were so desperate. They were so desperate, and they were discussing this situation. And Evgenia was there, and they just said her that she could take pictures of them. And it was not actually an intimate photos. It was protest photos. Only what they have at this moment were their naked bodies. And they allowing her to take pictures. And she said that she was understanding this she taking a great pictures, but she also were very ashamed, because she was actually from the Kiev there, and she was very ashamed from this decision which was taken in Kiev. And she said it was a very dark moment for her. She was taking it, but it's very, very difficult. So behind the artifacts as a photos or videos, we have the whole story of the artist and their protagonists also, which are really particular and interesting.
That adds a lot. That adds a lot to understanding the photographs. We have a question. Laura Brown, I think, would like to ask a question. Are you going to allow Laura to ask her question?
Sorry. Yes, so I had a question for Roman. I really liked the piece, Plan of Escape from the Donetsk region. And I was just wondering why you chose it to make it in black and white rather than color.
Because there are not a lot. Every color, I think, it's like заполитизированное, как сказать?
Politicized.
Politicized color. So that is why I just don't want that people look and see in my art politic meaning. So that's a picture not about politics. That's a picture about mentality of just like mentality, not about politics. Huh? You understand?
Yeah, thank you.
No, it's in all over the world the same situation. Some of party use exactly one color, red color, like in Belarus, red and red. In Ukraine, we have the same situation, orange color or something else. So that is why I just no color. only black and white, only clean Minion.
One of the things that, yeah, go ahead.
In one of our previous events that we did at the closure of the exhibition at the Soredok in Winnipeg, we had invited to speak Jessica Zichovich. And she precisely spoke about Roman's work, and she said that it reminds her about the early Soviet linokats, linogravure. All this kind of staple of Soviet graphic artists who worked with linokats, you know, like. And I thought, yeah, that's very interesting actually, because as the Roman has this link to Soviet monumental art, which is so much spread in the east of Ukraine, and also we can make this link to the ideas of Favorsky, for example, who was a graphic artist. All these ideas of synthesis of arts also that he developed independently from graphic art, and it creates like this kind of complex of ideas of linked to history of art of 20th century. And in a way is represented in Roman's digital graphic. So I wouldn't say that is completely apolitical. I think it brings some particular connotations in its own way. And if we link also to this idea of decommunization that occurred heavily in the Ukraine, particularly, we were having Alexandra Gaidai, the researcher who was speaking at the conference, at the conferences in Mexico City, related to our project. And precisely she was saying, from 2014 to 2018, there was like this wave of decommunization of monumental art, precisely in the east of Ukraine. So we can see this kind of trend, you know, of modifications made to the Soviet legacy, to the Soviet visual legacy, both in grand format and kind of small format. So I don't know. Great. It's just a comment.
We have another question here from Bogdan Tokarski. Perhaps you could put Bogdan on.
Hello, everyone. I hope you can hear me. Thank you so much to everyone for this incredibly rich and insightful contributions. It is indeed so important to learn about this incredible art that has been created over this time. And I just had a question to Roman, and in fact, it builds upon what Svitlana has started to speak about. And in particular, indeed, one can see some parallels between Roman's art and the arts of the second half of the 20th century, especially monumental art of Soviet Ukrainian art. And I was wondering in this respect, Romana, are there any particular artists from Ukraine or perhaps from elsewhere that you have been especially inspired by, or you were inspired by when you were creating your work even before all these events happened? And it is indeed striking that you were focusing so much on this region and, as it were, really putting it to the fore even before all these events happened. And related to that is also the question about whether there has been, or perhaps was in the past, a local Donbas artistic tradition that perhaps many people are not aware of. Perhaps there are some local Donetsk artists or Eastern Ukraine artists that you could tell us a bit more about. Thank you.
Thank you for question. Sveta, maybe you commented, or maybe you have a comment for that? Because that question for me and for you in one time. Huh? I think so.
Maybe you could
okay.
Some artists who inspired you.
Mm-hmm.
Would be great.
Of course, the artist who inspired me, it was Diego Rivera, Arosca, Siqueiras. I love that art, monumental art. It's my heroes. Maybe it will be interesting if I show some of my works from the past. For example, 2005 was 206. 50 years old. If you want, I just faster show you maybe some in another of my work. It will be interesting, for example. So let's see. I have a great study. It was very interesting interesting study with interesting academic, which study me make everything very simple because it's very difficult to make an important thing, big thing simple. So this picture, for example, Civis Pacem Parabellum, I hope you understand what does it mean. What it means, Civis Pacem Parabellum, it's picture about war. I created picture maybe 5 years before that war. It's like my proof of it's war. It's not surprise for a lot of people. That war is not surprise. There are a lot of people just wait for something like that war, and that war. It's like извините, как будет явление природы.
It's a phenomenon of nature.
Thank you for translating. This phenomenon of nature. I don't like this phenomenon, but it was not surprise for me. It's 100%. So why? You ask me why? Because we don't have a relationship, cultural relationship, of course, between south and west part of Ukraine. Long time, and there are a lot of people who live in east part of Ukraine don't understand nothing, completely nothing about subject of proud of mentality of west part of Ukraine. That is a big problem between, and that problem is really one of reason of that war. So I have many pictures. It's a series of the pictures. It's miners folklore. Of course, folklore is not a product by one artist, for example, by me. But why not? I just play like I'm a creator of coal miners for folk. So this like style which I create when I was have a study in academy, and I think this looks like a really classical style, typical style for the period.
Great, thank you. What does Svitlana, would you like to add to that? Is there a Donbas style?
Certainly, there are artists who work locally, and I know that there was some certain exchange, for example, between some of the artists who worked in the Donbas area, and even there was this artist in Mariupol, I think Hanya remembers his name, who actually was in contact with Diego Rivera, and he was doing murals in Mariupol.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
How's his name?
Arnautov.
Arnautov.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, interesting also spatial intersections in that area that you don't expect to be. But I think that actually the monumental art in the east of Ukraine is heavily unresearched. Is in my point of view. I'm not a specialist in Soviet monumental art, but I think that before decommunization, they needed actually to explore what they have and properly document what they have, because now much of this of this works so far they're lost or they're modified.
Yeah. If I can add a little bit, because actually now being in Mariupol, I see that there are some volunteers who became to work and to preoccupy about mosaics, about the monumental art in Mariupol. There are a lot of it, a lot of works, and actually there are a book which is kind of archived. They only took pictures and they have descriptions. And Svitlana has right that we don't have enough research about it, and it's like destroying also because nobody it is not a historical, not any historical, how do you say, value like in documentation, etc. But Arnautov is very interesting because he's from Mariupol, and he went to Mexico, and he worked with Diego Rivera. He actually was in 1930s, 27. It is a huge mural in National Palace of Diego Rivera. Arnautov was actually almost working alone there when Diego Rivera went to some trip, and also in Cuernavaca, Arnautov had worked a lot on this huge mural with Diego Rivera, and then he came back to Mariupol and he made some mosaics that they are now today still there in the 60s. So there are a lot of stuff right now. There are a lot of works, but they are not studied a lot. And I think that because of this law of decommunization, which is making that we are losing actually what we have, some people became to work more about it, but the government, it's difficult. But it's interesting that this civic uprising, that's like some people became to are preoccupied and they're making their books by their money. I went to sorry, I forgot. They showed our mosaics. Now we make a tour. We went to Azovmash. It's a big factory which is closed now, right now. It's like a huge ghost also in Mariupol because it doesn't work, but it's like a big space, and there are a lot of mosaics also inside. So yes, it's interesting also that the civic movement are helping to save what we have, but it's not studied enough.
Okay, we have just a couple questions that I can read out. The one comment is, first of all, thank you for this wonderful event. Alongside the value of documenting different forms of reality, as mentioned with respect to the documentary film genre, I would be really interested to hear the panelists comment a little more on the role of the arts that presented, and also the arts in general, in society at a time of war. What is the role of art in a time of war? And a second question, are there exhibitions that plan to come to the UK? So the role of art in a time of war, and are there plans to send this or similar exhibitions to other places?
I think that art in the times of war actually works as some kind of mechanism or instrument for understanding and conceptualization of what's going on, because sometimes the reality is kind of too scary to perceive it, just to face it. And that's why the alternative ways of seeing and alternative ways of perceiving it are needed. And the art and the artist in that case works as a mediator. That he actually adopts this kind of scary reality, all this death in the front line, for example, and all this quite scary situation in this industrialized area that is appears under shock suddenly, and so on, and translates it to the viewer, so that the viewers can actually emotionally respond to it, but not being overwhelmed by it. And I think this is important because both for inside Ukrainian society and both for presenting it outside Ukraine. Because, of course, it serves also this idea of cultural diplomacy outside Ukraine, but also it brings some kind of feelings that you cannot receive from the media, for example, because media typically focus on this negative side. They go for kind of dark events, and art brings maybe some possibility of resolving via understanding and via responding to it. And for the exhibitions in the UK, we would love to bring actually this or next project to the UK if there would be such possibility, of course, because it's a huge logistical challenge. But we hope that in future that there will be such possibility in the nearest future.
Great. I think we're running out of time. Are there any final comments from people? Because if not, I'll ask Olesya so that we can stay within our 90 minutes to Olesya to do a final thank you. Thank you from me personally for everybody. This has been a pleasure. I think Olesya wants to do an official thanks and goodbye.
Indeed, what a wonderful discussion. Thank you, everyone. Before I thank you properly one more time, we'd like to share the results of the poll to see whereabouts you all are. Mostly in London or the UK, but not only, quite a few people in Ukraine, the EU, some in Mexico, of course, which is absolutely wonderful. Thank you, wherever you are, for joining us today. I'd also like to make an announcement about our next series of events, and that's a very exciting project. It's going to be an online film festival with 4 films, 2 documentary, 2 feature films, all free to watch. We are going to run this film festival in partnership with Cambridge Ukrainian Studies and are extremely grateful to them for the financial support for this festival. And you can check out the details. It's going to be in November, the last 2 weeks of November, in chat now by clicking on the link that my colleague has just shared. And with that, the only thing that remains to do now is to thank the wonderful speakers, Svitlana, Roman, Hanya, and an absolutely excellent moderator, Myroslav, for this superb discussion. I certainly learned an awful lot, and I hope you did too. Please join us for our future webinars too. Thank you very much and have a good day or good night, depending where you are.